So we wanted to talk to, among others, Representative Dan Kildee, our friend of the great state of Michigan. Good morning, Representative.
Good morning. Thanks for having me back.
Thanks for coming back, Representative. So we have obviously, beyond just the despicable that, I think it is like President Obama said yesterday, we kind of expect this of Trump, but the fact that Republicans are still going along with this charade that, he has won or that we don't know who's won yet is just so despicable, isn't it? In the midst of a pandemic, for our national security, for so many reasons, right?
It is. And, here it is, the final act of the Trump era, of the Trump administration. And Republicans in Washington are just doubling down on the sort of sycophancy that they've engaged in. The fact that Mitch McConnell continues to behave as if he's a full-time employee of Trump Incorporated rather than a leader in the United States Senate, one of the greatest deliberative bodies in the world. It's really, this is,
Representative, I'm really not given to hyperbole, I swear, but I don't know what else to call this but treason at this point. I mean, Trump's own Homeland Security Department just said this election was the most secure in American history. So now he's begun firing those people that did their jobs and secured the election. And I quote, "While we know there were many unfounded claims and opportunities for misinformation about the process of our elections, we can assure you we have the utmost confidence in the security integrity of our elections, and you should too." They also basically shot down all of which are coming from the White House and Trump, all these ridiculous conspiracy theories. So now at least two people have been fired, right, because they won't parrot the president's ridiculous conspiracies.
Yeah, it's dangerous, and I think it really begs the question as to whether there is a Republican Party. There used to be a Republican Party that had principle, different views than I would hold, certainly different views in terms of fiscal and economic policy. But now the Republican Party defines itself as being obedient to Donald Trump,
yes,
subservient to him. And that's especially now not only unbecoming, but I think it's unpatriotic. The country has to come first at some point. And what's most distressing is that these Republicans that we're referring to, McConnell and others, they know,
of course,
that there's been no fraud. They know that the election results are overwhelming. This is a much bigger victory than Donald Trump experienced.
Have they said anything to you, Representative, about how they're saying all of whatever Senate or House seats they want are completely legitimate, but apparently just in the presidential election there was massive fraud whereby Trump was obviously the landslide winner, as some of them have said? I mean, it just makes no sense at all, does it?
No, it doesn't. This is the kind of thing you would expect to see out of a two-bit dictator somewhere, not out of the United States government. And, we expect it from Trump. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I am completely unsurprised by his behavior. It's quite predictable.
Yeah.
But as we move to a new administration, it's pretty shameful that so many Republicans are ignoring facts and continuing to be petrified of a tweet from Donald Trump. I got to believe that's the only thing that's scaring them.
And can I say again, your colleague, but one of the people I find most despicable because the leader is Kevin McCarthy, is House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. When asked if Biden should be receiving intelligence briefings, again, Representative Kildee, this is about our national security, America. McCarthy said Biden was not the president, and I don't know if he will be president January 20th. Whoever is will get the information. I mean, I guess I did not see that this party was going to continue to be this despicable right to the bitter end. Did you?
Yeah, this is where leadership matters. I was taught a long time ago by one of my favorite professors that leadership is the act of disappointing your own supporters at a rate they can absorb. Sometimes you have to tell people things that they don't want to hear because that's what leaders do. And unfortunately, what Leader McCarthy, so-called Leader McCarthy, seems to be willing to do is either lie or he is ignorant of the reality. I don't believe he's ignorant. He's not a stupid man. The fact that he says he doesn't know if Joe Biden will be president, that's kind of pathetic, honestly.
Yeah. And then even James Lakeford, people that try to do the right thing and say, if, they don't start giving him intelligence briefings by Friday, I'm going to step in. Well, now he had to sort of walk back to the degree. What did he say now? That, if he's the president. Now they're sort of taking this stance. Langford stressed he wasn't saying he believed Biden was the president-elect, but that both sides should have access to the intel briefings until we know who the winner is going to actually be.
Yeah,
in the midst of a pandemic with 160,000 cases yesterday, right?
Since John Adams was defeated by Thomas Jefferson, we've had some class and dignity in the wake of these elections, where the reins of power were turned over. Now, it was a different time, but even since then, look at Jimmy Carter when he defeated Gerald Ford, the concession that President Ford, which was a much closer election than this one,
Right.
or Ronald Reagan defeating Jimmy Carter, or something more recent when Bill Clinton defeated George H.W. Bush. There was some class and dignity that came with the respect for our democratic systems. This looks like something that Mr. Erdogan or Mr. Kim would do in the wake of an election that somehow didn't come out the way they would want it to. Of course, those elections often are a joke anyway, but still,
Right.
to behave this way is
Representative,
threatening to our democracy.
Yeah, and speaking of which, I wanted the story I started with, according to a report of the Daily Beast, Democratic lawmakers growing increasingly suspicious the administration of Trump is delaying turning over transition informations, not so much out of fury that Trump lost, but because he may be trying to bury information that could lead to investigations into the previous administration's failures. Obviously, the moves at the Pentagon, that is speculating they're either going to improperly release classified information to somehow, benefit Trump or God knows what, or bury information about the Mueller report, Ukraine, who knows. But even more concerning, Daily Beast said, is the belief that valuable evidence of failures to contain the spread of COVID that could be used to avoid repeating mistakes is also being destroyed in an attempt to sabotage the new Biden administration. What can Congress do about any of this? I mean, this has been such a lawless administration. I know expecting any of the normal, following the rules and the laws, I guess we've given up on, but what can we do about it?
Well, I think the one thing, and this is not going to be a universally held view, but it's one that I feel very strongly about, is that if there is a determination later that documents were destroyed, that's a criminal offense.
Yeah.
And anyone involved in it should be on notice right now that they shouldn't expect to be able to walk away and not face the consequence, even if they are following orders. That's no excuse for breaking the law. And I think we can't take the position that we want to put it all behind us, because that sends a message to future administrations that you can do this.
Thank you. I could not be more with you. Representative, I feel like Joe Biden's first two major decisions, Kamala Harris and Ron Klain, really, he hit it out of the park. I mean, if that's an example of his decision making, I got to say, because as you know, I mean, Ron Klain, Biden cited his experience handling the 2008 financial crisis as well as the Ebola health crisis. And we're facing both now. And, I have to say, Biden's calmness and his first decisions and moves are calming me greatly. How about you?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know Mr. Klain very well. I know him and spent some time with him early in the year with our whip operation as we were preparing for the coronavirus response. And it's just such a breath of fresh air to see somebody who's competent, who's calm, who has a command of the facts, as compared to the people that President Trump has surrounded himself with, which is really essentially people who will say yes to him no matter what his crazy ideas are.
Yeah.
Mr. Klain, I think, and Kamala Harris, Senator Harris, both will bring a lot to the administration.
Yeah. Well, Representative, all like joking and pathetic, reactions aside to what Trump and the Republican Party are doing right now, there's real danger. I mean, this headline, neo-fascists and militia are descending upon D.C. tomorrow to support Trump's conspiracy theories. Police worry of guns. There is obviously no open carry in D.C. The president, as usual, as he did with your governor, is inciting violence. I mean, by the way, that the militia ringleader behind the alleged plot to kidnap Governor Whitmer in your state, and plan to execute her on live TV, he also was going to burn down the state capitol in Lansing with everyone still inside it.
Right.
That was the plot that Trump said maybe was a problem, maybe it wasn't. I mean, out loud, he said that.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that I've been saying here, especially to some of our state Republican officials who seem to want to have it both ways. They don't want to take responsibility for these really unhinged people acting in this manner, but they're willing to pour fuel on the fire. They're willing to say things that delegitimizes this election, that provides some comfort to those who believe that they have to take up arms in order to beat back an illegitimate presidency. They can't dissociate themselves from this. They are validating these thoughts. They are encouraging it, although not specifically. They're implicitly encouraging these sorts of things. And, they want to then sort of rise above it and say, well, I never would encourage any form of violence. Come on. I mean, we're not, this is a moment where some people just have to rise above their narrow partisan interests. Hillary Clinton lost the election by a far thinner margin and showed some graciousness. Why can't they?
Yeah, and in my opinion, that was not even. I agreed with John Lewis and Maxine Waters and others said that he was not legitimately elected. I mean, no one's ever had as many factors against her in terms of Russian interference and WikiLeaks and the FBI and Giuliani dirty tricks that led to the Comey letter and on and on. I mean, and you're right. The fact that she could be gracious and say, we want this president to succeed. When anyway, I agree with you. Let's look at one silver lining. So the Affordable Care Act at the Supreme Court. I mean, I keep saying that would be the final exploding comedy cigar if they do not, after all this, strike down the Affordable Care Act. But I mean, and again, I know you can't take from early arguments or what justices say, but it certainly seems like they could very well strike down the mandate, but not the whole Affordable Care Act. What do you think?
Yeah, both Justice Kavanaugh's comments and Chief Justice Roberts' comments regarding severability, the ability of one particular piece to be stricken, but not the whole act, I think is very encouraging. Now, I'm always careful not to read too much into the justices' questioning and comments during oral arguments, because often we're disappointed or surprised in a positive way by where the judgment actually ends up. But, to me, this does make the case that members who are appointed to the court, despite the fact that I disagree with some of the decisions that have been made, take a different view when they have a lifetime appointment and have a legacy to be concerned with. And I hope that that's what the court will do, is not overreach, realize that while they may find some fault, that doesn't mean they can cancel the whole piece of legislation.
Congressman, when might we know? What do we have an idea when the Supreme Court ruling might come?
Well, typically those cases are released in May and June.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I expect it'll be a similar timeline.
Yeah. Well, congratulations to you. You defeated your opponent 54% to 42%, assuming those weren't all fake ballots. And
right, exactly.
That is what I think electorally is known as an ass kicking in Michigan's 5th congressional district. So congratulations to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And please come back anytime. Keep us updated, okay?
Happy to do it. Thank you.
Thanks, Representative. There he goes.
He's
Representative
awesome.
Dan Kildee of the great state of Michigan.
He's got it going on.